analysis, person analysis, financial performance, sales, marketing performance, operations and systems efficiency, team and leadership performance, and product or service quality. So what I want to do will be to use some of these tools like I talked about earlier, like the business model generation, SWOT, PESO, to X-ray your business. And I'll be dropping the like the review sheet, the worksheets in the chat. So Joshua, please go ahead as I get to the various sections. You can drop the link. All the review sheets and worksheets we'll be using have been archived in a Google document that you can download on a link. The link will be shared shortly, right? Thank you. I see someone, Emperor, joining from Ilora. Isaac, thank you very much. Right, Onyeka is from Ibadan. Thank you so much. So please, as you join us, keep dropping your location. It just gives me an idea where people are joining from and what business they are also into. So as I was saying, you will get a link where you can download all the worksheets that you can perform your reviews with, right? So thank you, Joshua. You can download that. The link is not locked on Google, so you're free to download. It's also deliberately left in Microsoft Word so that you can edit the sheets on your own. Thank you, Treasurer from Ikeja, Lagos. Thank you, joining from Yaba, Akinyemi, Adipalakunle. Thank you very much. Welcome. Right, so we'll just go straight right into the session. I'm hopeful that within the next 1 hour we can wrap up, and you will also have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. So the first thing is about models, right? This is what determines the strength of your business, how far you can go. It determines your growth, your potential. I like to talk about models as what foundations are to buildings. I'm into real estate, I'm into construction, and what determines the height, the strength, the durability of a building is the foundation. I'm sure you see a lot of high-rise buildings. You might maybe 10, 20-story buildings. We have a lot of them in America here, but we also have a lot of them in Lagos and also big cities in Nigeria. By the time those buildings are coming up, you will be surprised to know how deep their foundations are, right? So what determines the height of a building, like I said, is the foundation. And the same can be applied to business, right, with business models. Many people wish to grow big. Many people aspire to go global. They want their businesses to be in many cities in the world, America, UK, Johannesburg, South Africa, Asia. They pray, they yearn for the business to grow big, but the model is faulty. What makes a business scalable is the model. And that's what we'll be talking about first, right? We want to review your model, what business model you've been operating with in the past and how you can make it better. So when we talk about business models, 3 things matter. First, we're talking about how you create your business, right? Don't forget, business models determine the strength and the scalability and the future of your business. When anyone asks you what your business model is, what they expect to hear is how you're creating your value, how you're delivering your value, and how you are capturing your value. I'll say that again. A business model is all about 3 things: value creation, value delivery, and value capture, right? And I'll give an example with a cake business. Someone wants to start a cake business, and the person is thinking about having a shop in Lekki, Lagos, for instance, right? So the business creation, the value creation would be something like, if I have to describe that for that person, this is a fictional example, right? Creating or baking the cake somewhere. It might be in the shop that the person wants to display the cakes in, or maybe somewhere else. But the value creation process would be something like, you go to buy the ingredients for the cake, your flour, your sugar, your butter, your milk, and everything. You create the cake and you display them in a shop in Lekki. So all of that value creation is something you need to focus on. Then there is the value delivery, which means how do customers get to you? Don't forget, using an example of someone who wants to have a physical store, a physical cake shop where people who want to get married or want to get their birthday cakes come in physically to buy their cakes. The person creates all of that value, takes it to a shop in Lekki where people interface with it, such that if I lived in Maiduguri, for instance, and I want to get a cake from her in Lekki, it will be almost impossible. If I lived in the UK, no matter how good her cake is, she's already created a limit for the model because of that physical store. So that is the delivery and the value creation. Remember, we talked about the value creation. Then the second is the value delivery. The final one is the value capture, right? Which means how do people pay you for your service? How do you exchange people resources when people get the value of the service from you, right? Because it's a physical store, the options are limited. So it's either someone comes to you physically to pay for it, or before the person comes, they send you the money in advance, or before they pick the cake, they do a POS transaction, a point of sale transaction, right? Now let's compare that model to someone else who says, I want to aggregate all the cake stores in Nigeria or across the world on the platform. You see, that person doesn't have to know how to bake cakes, right? Maybe just a limited knowledge, but the model is different, but the service is about the same. Don't forget, I'm talking about business models. They are both selling cakes, but one has changed the model to, I don't have to be the one making the cakes. All I have to do is just make sure the platform is great enough for people to list their cakes, such that in terms of value delivery, I can sell to someone in Lagos, in Abuja, in New York, in California, in Johannesburg, in Kenya, right? And I can also use electronic means, digital means to capture the value, right? It is faster for someone who has the second model, right, to grow, to scale, to go global than the first model. Guess what? The first person might even be the best cake baker in the world. The person's cake might be the best, but the person will not experience the growth or the intended growth, right? So what limits your growth and your scalability in business generally is your model. And that's the first thing I will be talking about today. If you have downloaded this worksheet, please follow me to the worksheet on business models, which I'll be talking about now, right? The first thing on the business model is customer segment, and it talks about who your target customers are. You have to be specific about the demographics, right? What are their needs? You have to define them, right? Remember, we're talking about business models. So there are 9 things you have to focus on when building your model. The challenge you might be having with your business might just be on the model. I likened a business model the same way an engineer will focus on building a solid foundation for a building. So if you get it wrong here, then no matter how much you wish or pray, your business might not turn out the way you want it. So that's why this is important. So it's a fictional example here that I'll be using. So you can use this framework to create your own model. Yes, you might have been on the right track, but this can help you to reshape things. There is what we call value proposition, which talks about, I call it your gifts to the world, right? Your value proposition is your gifts to the world. When people want to describe their business, they think that people would gravitate towards them based on the number of services and solutions they're providing. But usually, it's one reason that people come to you for, right? You might be able to do many things, but most people will remember you in business for just one thing, and that's your value proposition. That's your gift to the world. And when describing your value proposition, it's usually about 3 things. You have to talk about the solution you're providing. You have to talk about the audience. And thirdly, you have to talk about why should anyone care, right? A good example I try to use most times is telecommunications companies in Nigeria. You've got Etisalat or Nine Mobile, you've got MTN, you've got Globalcom, and a couple of other telecom companies. Even with that space where the competition is tight, you realize that all of them have different value proposition. And that's why a company like MTN will say, my slogan is everywhere you go. They're saying, I might not be great with voice, I might not be great with data, but when it comes to reach and how expanded our network is, then you think MTN. That is like their slogan. You see, amongst many things that MTN provides, amongst many services that MTN provides, you see that what they want you to know them for is the reach, so that when you go to your village in Anambra or wherever, or Elisha in Osun State, you're going to find MTN network. That might not be the case for Glo, right? So everyone needs a value proposition in your model, right? The third is your channel, talking about how you're going to reach or deliver value to your customers. There's customer relationships, there's revenue streams, there is key resources, there is key activities, key partnerships, and cost structure. So the reflections here would be around, I've put some questions here for you, and I want you to go ahead to really x-ray your business and ask yourself, do I have a good model? At the end of the day, every business should grow big. Every business looks forward or yearns to grow big, right? But the problem is you might be running with a model that limits your growth potential. And that was why I used the first example about the cake businesses, of one that is positioned with a model for scalability and global growth, and the other one that is not positioned. Both of them might be doing great things, providing best services, but one is not properly positioned. So that's pretty much what the business model work is all about. The second thing I would like us to talk about is what I call a SWOT analysis, which stands for your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? It's called a SWOT analysis: your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a common tool that we use in business, but it's also maybe the least used appropriately, right? It is very simple, but it's very powerful if you use it properly. And I'll just go through it briefly. Like I said, you also have a worksheet for your SWOT analysis. You can go through that and fill the portions for your business. SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, right? And your strengths and your weaknesses are your internal factors. These are things that happen to you within your control. The opportunities and the threats are external. So we're saying the things you have control over can help you do things you don't have control over, or can make bad things you don't have control over happen to you. And that's what we mean by your strength, weaknesses being internal, and your opportunities and threats being the external factors you cannot control. So I'll go to the worksheet so that I can also take you through that slide, right? So what are your strengths? Let's use this fictitious, fictional company as an example, right? It says they've got strength in brand, as a strong brand among African youth, affordable subscription pricing, engaging. So look at your strengths are things that you have going for you. A good example might be that you worked in a company, in a sector in Nigeria, maybe the airline transport sector. Maybe you work in airpiece or aero contractor for 10 years, and you're trying to start something in transportation or logistics. That history you have is a strength for you because you've built a network over 10 years. You built experience over 10 years. There are some things you know how to do that you can leverage in your business. It might also be that you worked in a restaurant or in a fast food business or in a hotel, a big brand, for a couple of years, right? These are strengths that can play positively for you in your business. So don't discount where you're coming from, your history. For someone like me, I studied civil engineering in the university and I have a real estate business. That degree qualification that I have, right, that engineering qualification that I have is a strength. I will be able to transfer that experience or that knowledge and expertise in my real estate business in a different way that someone who just has a real estate business without the background. You see, that's what we'll talk about strengths. And what your strength will do for you is that to help you take advantage of opportunities, right? I will be able to understand some things better in my space than someone who doesn't have those strengths. So list out your strengths. Don't list too much when you're trying to complete this, but list out the most important things. Yes, people tend to want to write a lot of things as their strength. But think about it as the most important things, right? Talking about the Pareto principle, 20% of the strength you have will make up for 80% of the advantage. You think about it that way. So if you have 10 strengths, right, just two of them will make up for 80% of the results you're looking for. So think about it that way. The 80-20 80-20 rule. The next is the weaknesses. Yes, everyone has got a strength, but they've got a weakness, right? Your weakness might be that you're running a fast food business or a fashion business, and you're not so trained in fashion. That happens. We have a lot of people that have fashion houses and they don't know how to make clothes. That is a weakness. So those weaknesses would form threats for you, right? So what you need to do is, how do I position myself in a way that these weaknesses do not threaten my survival of my business? And for the strength, what opportunities do I have that I can use my strengths to leverage, right? So there's something we call the tools matrix. And what that does is it just matches your strengths and your weaknesses, your strengths and your threats, weaknesses and opportunities, and weaknesses and threats. And that's the example you see here. So you have to use your strength to maximize opportunities. First, you must have mapped it out, and you must also have mapped out your opportunities so that you use your strength to maximize opportunities. You also use your strength, right, to defend against threats. Remember, every business has got weaknesses which make some threats, create threats against their businesses. You use your weaknesses as well to overcome. You use your weaknesses as well to overcome weaknesses by using the opportunities, and you minimize weaknesses by avoiding or reducing threats. So pretty much that's what the SWOT analysis talk about. You can fill in the sections with your business, and I'll move on to the next thing I want to talk about before we go into the review proper, and that's what I call the Potter's 5 forces. Business should not be taken very lightly. Business is war. Business is a battlefield. For the spiritual ones, it's like you're fighting unseen battles, right? When we pray for our businesses, this is more or less what we're praying about, because there are a lot of things that happen against us in business that we don't see. And that's what this tool helps us to analyze. It's called the Potter's 5 forces. We're just saying there are forces in business that fight against you that you cannot see, whether you know it or not. There are forces against your business, and you have to properly analyze them, right, for you to have a winning edge or a chance at winning in your business. The first is called a competitive rivalry. Competitive rivalry. Every business has got a competition, heavy competition. Some limited competition, but some also have very huge competition. And the way I like to think about competition is that you have direct competitors and you have indirect competitors. So the question is, what are your competitors in your business, right? So the fact that you have an airline business, for instance, you sell tickets to fly, doesn't mean your only competitors are those who operate with you at that level. Competition can also be substitutes. You understand? So if I sell food, for instance, I own a big hotel and I have a 5-star restaurant. I sell food. My average meal is about 25,000 naira, more like fine dining experience. My competition will not be people at my level. The question is, what is the substitute? When someone is hungry for food, right, at that point, if they don't have money, then they begin to think about substitutes in terms of cost. What are the most affordable ways that can get this fine dining? So it might just be stepping down their preference for the fine dining, right? That might be one of the substitutes that comes in as competition. So 5 forces. Number 1 is competitive rivalry. Number 2 is threat of new entrants. What do we mean? Some sectors of some businesses have a high threat of people coming in to compete with them in that industry. The eventual scenario you want is that your threat of new entrant is low. right? And I'll give an example again with an organization like MTN, because almost everybody in Nigeria know MTN as one of the big telecoms company. The threat of new entrants for MTN is very low, because before you can start that business, you need to get a license from the government, you need to raise millions of dollars, you need to hire top-notch staff and all of that. So it's difficult for someone to compete with you when you're coming into that kind of business. But if you have a makeup business, for instance, or you sell food, you just have a random restaurant, the threat of new entrants will be very high. So these are some of the unseen forces that fight you, right? I'll get back to the worksheet on how you can use that to really defend your position. The third is the threat of substitute, right? Every business has got a substitute. I made an example the other time with airlines. If I cannot fly, I can go by road, right? That's like substitution for service. If I cannot eat in a five-star restaurant, I can go to Mama Puts. If I cannot buy a 20K shirt, I can get something a lot more affordable. I can just go to a thrift store. And so these are substitutes. You have to think about your business that way as well. That what are the substitutes that I have or that can come up in my business, and you analyze them properly. And the fourth force is bargaining power of suppliers. These apply mostly to those who manufacture things. You have a lot of suppliers that supply you your raw materials. For instance, you have a fashion business, you have people that supply you your fabric and all of that. You have your suppliers as a force that work against you, because if your suppliers change their terms in any way, it can affect you, can take you out of business. So the question is, what do you need to do? I think I should bring up the review document for Porter's 5 forces so we can go. So what do you want to do with a supplier, for instance? At some point while I was running my business in Box Office Hub, my major suppliers were landlords, property owners that had big spaces, because I would usually rent big spaces or lease big spaces from them, then sublet those spaces to other smaller tenants. So just imagine getting a space in the size of 1,000 square meters, right? That is a huge space that about 50, 100 businesses can use. Now, my landlord could easily say, hey, I want to use my property next year, or I am increasing my rent by 100%. That is a supplier that has the possibility of crumbling my business overnight. So the question is, what do I need to do to defend my business against that supplier, right? The bargaining power of suppliers. What I did was, I would usually negotiate a long lease, like 2, 3, 4, 5 year lease, so that at least I'm protected for that period of time. One of the best ways to prevent the bargaining power, or to reduce the power of suppliers, the bargaining power of suppliers in business, is with contracts, right? You must have a legal factor that helps you reduce that, because suppliers usually are bigger. They want to change their prices overnight. They want to change the terms overnight. In some cases, you can also buy in bulk. That's why if you know you're going to be relying on suppliers, a lot of people supplying you the inputs for your business, you want to buy in bulk, right? You want to stock up things, right? Another way you can do that, you can reduce the power of suppliers in your business, is by having multiple suppliers, meaning you're not depending on just one person, right? You need someone to supply you your fabric in your fashion business. Pre-qualify them in advance before you need them, so that whenever someone is changing the terms, you can easily run to someone else. So, because if you are trying to pre-qualify when you need the service, it might be too late. That might affect your business and your operations. So finally, in Porter's 5 forces is what we call the bargaining power of buyers. Yes, buyers also have power, and the most relevant example for this bargaining power buyers are businesses who have institutional buyers. So for instance, you get someone that buys from you, like a large corporation, orders thousands of your products. They buy large quantity of your products, right? It's a great thing because you're getting good money in bulk. But the problem with that is there is also the threat on your business when they change their mind. For instance, they find a substitute, they can negotiate you down, and they can even change their mind on your service, right? They can substitute you easily and go somewhere else. So like bargaining power suppliers, you can also use contracts. So in America, developed countries, people pay their rent on a monthly basis. But what the landlords would do to reduce the threat of the bargaining power buyers is they make sure that you sign a long-term rent, minimum 1 year with them. So you cannot just wake up because you're paying your rent monthly. You can't just wake up tomorrow to say, I want to change my landlord. At least you have 1 year to think about that. So these are some of the examples you can use to prevent the bargaining power bias. And try not to have one main person buying from you. Try to have many people spread your options as regards to your bias, right? So now I'll be going next to the review. Use this worksheet to create your plans for your business, starting from the business model, starting from the SWOT analysis, starting from Porter's 5 4Cs. Use all of that to create your own plan for your business. Review what has happened in the past and also create a plan for the future, right? So I'll be going to the review, meaning let's look at what has happened in the past. So the first, so if you can find the slide, that's the healthier business review. So based on the new information learned from the previous sessions, you have to use this worksheet to reflect on key areas of your business performance and your strategy. You have to review each section carefully to identify your wins, your gaps, and areas for growth, right? So this is not exhaustive. And how do I mean by that? There are many tools you can use in your business to review your business, but these are just examples of some of the key ones that I also use my business for growth and for profitability. First is your strategy, right? What was your primary goal for the first half of the year? Did you stay focused or get distracted, and why? What decisions move your business forward the most? And what changes should be made for the next 6 months? And these are questions that can help you rethink what you're doing. These are questions that can help you reposition properly. With strategy, you have to begin with models, right? If the model is wrong, there's nothing pretty much you can do with the business. And that was why I started with the business models. Second is the financial performance. Try to ask yourself some of these questions about revenue, about expenses, about your targets, and why, right? I talked about the Pareto principle the last time, where if you look really well into the data of your business, you will realize that a certain segment of customers are providing you most of your revenue. Maybe you don't want to categorize everybody in the same basket, right? If you have 100 customers, for instance, everybody cannot be on the same level. The same reason they say all fingers are not equal. With Nigerian banks, they do this very well. They categorize all bank customers at different levels. And that's what they call the market segment, right? There are people who they treat very specially. There are corporate clients, there are individual clients, there are different cadres of clients in a bank. And you want to do the same as well for your business. Understand where the money is going to, understand where the money is being spent and how the money is coming in. If you go back to your business model where we talk about key resources, what you need to do, we have key activities and key resources. You have to make sure that you're spending money on the key activities, right? In some cases, business owners and founders tend to focus on the things that are not bringing in the money. And that's why you have your key activities and your key resources so you can match both of them together. There is customer and marketing. That's also a key area you need to review. Why your best customers and why do they buy from you? At some point in my business, I realized that about half of my clients were Nigerians in diaspora. And what does that tell me? I need to pay a bit more attention on the value I'm creating and how I'm marketing. So if I'm able to position my business to reach more Nigerians in diaspora, the better for me. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'm not paying attention to where people are buying from. So that's something important for you to do. use all of these questions to review what has happened and what you need to do in the next period. There is team, and the fourth part of the review, the team and your productivity. Usually, I tell business owners that a business that you cannot delegate and leave for people to operate is still more of the self-employment phase. It's not yet a full business, because what makes you a business owner is that you can hand over the business in the hands of people. You can put the business in the hands of people who are qualified. So first, you must know how to find good people, because it's all about people. Business is all about people, not the product. So you must be able to find good people to run the business, right? And when you found the people, try to create systems and policies. Have those systems that help you to hand the businesses to them to operate. And you can only do that if you've created your policies, your manuals, and everything. So try to build your business. Yes, it's work in progress for a lot of people, but try to build your business to the point where you can really hand the business over to people to operate. That is the point where you become a business owner. You haven't completely become a business owner if you cannot hand over your business for an extended period of time and things don't collapse. Yes, there's nothing wrong for in being self-employed, but that is the ultimate. That is what makes you scalable. That is what brings the growth for your business. The fifth one is about operations and systems. I talked about this earlier, right? Where you have your operations and systems well documented. For tasks that can be automated, please automate it. With the advent of artificial intelligence, computers are becoming a lot more intelligent these days, where you might not necessarily have to be the one responding to basic questions. Someone points, makes a request on social media, sends an email to find out about the price of your product. You don't have to be the one. You don't even have to employ someone to do pricing and negotiations anymore. You have to standardize your operations, standardize your product and your services. For instance, you're selling phones. What is the cost of this phone? What are the frequently asked questions? And you can just give that to an AI bot to respond to your clients. Things are a bit smarter these days. Innovation and growth. Talking about new ideas in your business, right? I believe one of the ways that entrepreneurship can be leveraged is with innovation. This is just about the new things, new thinking, new ideas you're bringing into the business, right? That's what differentiates you from the ordinary business person. It's the innovation and the new thinking you're bringing into it. So the questions here are, did you launch or test any new ideas last year? Are you consistently learning and improving your offers? And what feedback loops are in place to fuel growth? One of the ways you can build innovation and innovation culture in your organization is with customer feedback, your user feedback. When you sell, try to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. Ask them questions. Most of the improvements I've made in my business have been from the buyer perspective, right? Because they're the ones that use the products. Sometimes they come as difficult customers, and I think the difficult customers are some of the best places you can get innovative ideas from, because what they are saying is, I love you too much, I love your business too much to just substitute you for someone else, because hey, they can easily go somewhere else. So when you find a customer complaining about something they're not nagging, don't be quick to categorize them as a difficult customer. Sit down with them. Those are the kind of people you want to love more, because I mean, they could have gone somewhere else. But if someone is saying, maybe you want to do this better, that's a good thing to pay attention to. There is mindset and leadership, right? And here, I think it's all about you thinking about your habits and also the things that hinder your business from growing. Are you delegating effectively? Are you micromanaging? There's something I also think is very important here, which is around building your social capital, right? Which talks about the benefits we derive from the relationships we have, the benefits and the value we derive from the relationships. Building your social capital. You have to be intentional about building social capital. It's usually not about money, right? It's not about money, but about the benefits. It's non-monetary, but everybody has got a social capital to leverage on, right? And when we talk about social capital, we're talking about your bonding social capital, meaning your family and friends, your immediate network. We're talking about your bridging social capital, which is your professional network, your business network. And there's a link in social capital. Where people get it wrong is that they try to sell most times to their bonding capital, family, friends, and immediate network. But you need to move beyond that, and you need to mix all the social capital in the appropriate mix, right? Proportion, right? And finally, on this review are the next steps and the strategic priorities. What are your goals for the next 6 months? What must change? What must change to achieve them? I mean, what are the things you need to change within? We've talked about a couple of things in the past to achieve your goals. And who and what do you need help from, right? I just talked about social capital. You will always need help from people, right? It might be your customers, it might be your friends, it might be your family members, it might be people you've worked with in the past. And what will success look like by the end of the year? You see, having a good description about the future helps you to move faster towards it, because whatever is not measured or inspected, right, cannot be measured. You need to set goals, you need to set priorities, right, for the future, and you have to describe them. The better you describe these things, the more likely you are able to achieve them in the next period. So pretty much these are all the conversations I have for the review session. And I wouldn't mind if any of you would want to have a conversation with me. I can bring you to the stage to ask questions. If you don't mind, you can also post your questions on the chat box, or just notify me um, so that I can bring you up the stage so we can talk and maybe get more perspective on the points I've raised. I don't intend that this webinar lasts more than 1 hour. We're about 40 something minutes in. So if you have any questions, something that is not clear um, from what I've talked about, we can talk about them now. Okay, Onyeka, do you want to come to the stage? Should I add you to the stage? Yes or no? I can add you if you don't mind. Are you ready? I'm almost there. Okay, yes, Onyeka. Good. All right,
Okay.
Onyeka, welcome.
Hi, good evening. And well, I don't know what time it is there, but
Thank you.
thank you for the session. Pretty straight to the point. And I think um, it takes away a lot of clutter and just would help, I believe, everyone here be able to review in good time. So I think my question is more around having, when you spoke about business models, and when you have multiple like a hybrid model, so to speak, right? How to go about that, and also how to prioritize that, because a business can serve B2C segments, serve B2B, serve B2G.
Yeah.
So how to go about that? And maybe I should give a bit more context, right? Um, I think this is my thinking, because I run a leadership school. Yes, we are primarily digital. We focus on bringing the learning experiences digitally first. I found that, yes, the B2C, which is the consumers, they've been able to adopt it. At least we've had early adopters, right? And now it's at a phase where, because when you were speaking about this business model thing, I 1000% agree with. When we were doing our review, I identified that to be the primary problem, meaning that we were just serving one audience and relying a bit too much on one product, right? So now I think we're at a time, I guess you call that innovation, to be able to grow it, grow the business or take it beyond what the current earnings are. So I think I'm just curious about how to prioritize um, scaling up your model if you have a hybrid model. Yeah, I think that's what I'm curious about.
Okay. Thank you very much, Onyeka, for your question. I think it's a very valid one. I'll need to please stay here. I'll need to ask you some follow-up questions. In terms of
Sure.
revenue, which of the segments give you the
Mhm.
most? You talked about B2C, B2B, and B2G. Which of
Yeah.
them give you the most revenue?
I don't think we've gotten to a place where I can answer most. I think I can
Okay.
answer what gives immediate and um immediate and recurring would be the B2C, because the
Okay.
B2B, the B2G, they are more, especially the B2B, they are more relationship heavy. And it's like, how do you, the sales cycle for selling to like an organization is much longer. So
Yeah.
I guess I can only speak to, and just to give you a bit more context, this business is a year and maybe 4 months old. So
Okay.
we're just at a place where testing ended. We know, okay, this is a real thing. We should invest more in this arm of the business and things like this. So I can speak to what the primary customers or who they are. I'm sorry. I can speak more to the people who have shown potential to give on a recurring basis revenue rather than who gives the most.
Okay.
We're now, and to answer your question, we're now in the phase of exploring the B2G. I guess if you think about it from a development angle, so the development partners, and we are exploring doing that by way of partnerships. So yeah, that's what we're exploring. So we're about to
Okay.
see who, yeah.
Great. Great. Well, congratulations. To me, it sounds like you're on the right footing, on the good notes, because you're already beginning to understand all the segments of your business, right?
Mhm.
I've had a situation whereby I had a business that was giving me a lot of social capital, but wasn't giving me money. You
Mm.
see, and that's why you need to understand what's going on with this segment, right?
Mhm.
Some will give you some kind of value that is
Mhm.
very important for you to have, but they might not give you the money, right? So you need to know the relationships you will be developing with all of them. I have a market segment that give me money, but they don't give me social capital. Do you
Mhm.
understand? So I know how to communicate with all of that. So I think the best response I want to give you is take time to understand the numbers and the whatever is
Mhm.
happening with your phase right now, and
Mhm.
try to deal with each sector
Mhm.
separately. One of the challenges we have in business is seeing everybody as the same. We're not all the same.
Yeah.
Your clients are not all the same. Effectively categorize them and also manage them separately. I think that might just be, yes, I agree that some models are hybrid. It might not just be physical, digital, kind of white and black approach to it, but it is also okay to have a hybrid model, right? But with that, you have to be very, very attentive to the data, right, so that you can respond properly. I hope that helps.
Yeah. To an extent,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other question? Mr. Goke, thank you. You asked if this will be a regular presentation. I hope so. This is the first one, but I hope we can have maybe once a month to just rub minds. Just trying to build a community around entrepreneurship, about people building great stuff around and see where we go from that. So I can't say yes, but maybe yes once a month. But thanks. I see that you stumbled in. Do we have any other question? We have about 13 people or so online. I have about 9 minutes left. Um, any
I
question?
yeah, sorry, I have a question before you kick
Yes,
off.
please go on. Yes, ma'am.
Is if you would be open to um partnering to bring what it is that you've just, like, this is me shooting my shot, but what you just taught to me to the people in my community who hopefully would also be be interested in joining your community as well, if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Beautiful, beautiful. I don't mind, and we can collaborate on that. And that's what business is all about. I talked about building your social capital the last time, right? People, especially business owners, always get stuck, especially people who are just starting up in that bonding social capital. What we're doing right now is moving to the bridging social capital where there's a lot of collaboration, right? That's also where innovations happen because you have something you're bringing on board. I have mine. We bring it together. 1,000 can become 10,000. Do you understand? So there is a lot of growth that can happen with that. There's something important that I need to say before I close up finally, but let me take questions for now. Thank you very much, Ayeka. We can connect more um, on maybe Instagram or my email to take this conversation up. I see Isaac wants to ask a question. Are you ready to put you on the stage, Isaac? Okay, Isaac has a question. Let me put you on the stage, Isaac. Hold on. All right. I'm looking for you, Isaac. I can't find you. Just hold on, don't worry, just give me. Or Joshua, can you help me put Isaac on the stage if you can? Okay, invite to studio. Okay, I got you now. Isaac, are you with me now? Isaac, I just invited you. Hi, Isaac. You might need to accept my invitation, Isaac. Do we have any other question while we sort out Isaac's maybe you want to type your question while we sort out bringing you to the studio. Okay, Isaac is here with us. Okay, welcome, Isaac. You can go ahead with your question. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope you can hear me well.
Clearly, Isaac, I can hear you.
Yes, so I run a retail business in partnership with some of my friends and all that. And presently, we have a subsidiary that is at that point where we are having a lot of backlog with old stocks. And then some of them are getting expired, even though we are doing quite a lot of volumes. But the market tends to open up to these new stocks. And the reason is because we are doing more of B2B. We also do B2C, but our major customer base are B2B. Those are the people who buy in bulk. So looking at the present state, we've gotten to a point where we've built quite a number of strategies around pushing out the old stock. We have some of these people we give some offers to. Okay, get ₦1 million worth of product, we give you extra 30% just to push the old stock off. We give a lot of discount on this old stock even when we are selling at a loss. But we are saying that we can't continue this style. Why? Because customers, one, they are not keeping up to that 30% later payment. Secondly, there are some also who are really pricing the products down, and we don't get this offer from our suppliers at a very flexible way we are giving it to them, which is not sustainable in the long run. And we don't have all the resources to travel to China to build this relationship yet. And we are just looking for that best approach to the market so that we can hit our target for the year without losing so much on our own stocks. So that's the present state, and I would like to have your input on that. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Isaac. Sounds more like a distribution challenge, right?
Yes.
What I don't understand clearly is why you need to compulsorily have the goods in stock before you get buyers? Is there a way where you can sort of, even if it means you're not making as much, depend on the buyers directly to feed your suppliers, um, to feed the demand or the supply?
Yes. So we have a
So
very
that what
peculiar
you're doing right
situation.
now is you're getting the product in stock before you feed your buyers. So can it be a bit more automated and almost seamless where you're having zero inventory in quotes?
Okay, so we have a peculiar situation because we have a competitive market and we are selling casuals. So
Okay,
what dictates the purchase volume is market interest and availability. So
okay,
they don't wait because we are selling to B2B and they have access to other distributors.
okay,
So they know the latest design, and in a week, if this latest design is already overbought, they don't buy again. They are looking for the next design. So we have to have our goods present because to have it from China and show them takes 2 months. We are coming, taking it through water, and we are bringing it to cargo is a lot of resources, a lot of money. We definitely sell at a loss. So that's the challenge of the product. So we have to have the product ahead of time and just bringing it
okay.
in, and then it's affecting old product.
I get your point. I get your point. Do you think you optimized your buyer network? Do you is that at the maximum currently?
Maximum, I would say they are looking like you mentioned those forces. They actually not, we are not able to maximize them on their full attention because of this other contacts within the market. And it's a big
Competitors, right?
market.
Competitive rivalry.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I get it. So you might need to be a bit more attentive to the possible innovations that can come up, right? Because I'm not in the industry, because I also don't have enough context, it might be difficult for me to suggest, but it's something we can continue to talk about as we go along. You already have my email, we can keep talking, but some of these challenges can be solved with innovation, maybe just properly thinking around the challenges and the interest. There will be a solution somewhere, but it needs a bit more thinking around it. But for me, I think it will be around what additional value you can bring in to make your buyers see you as priority, to make them see you more than just the commodity you are giving them. And that's the differentiation part I'm talking about, right? Um, that's we talked about the threats of substitute, we talked about the rivalry, right? And pretty much. So we can keep the conversations on, but I think there has to be some input of innovation somewhere along the line. I hope that
Yes,
helps,
I would
Isaac.
also like to ask, thank you so much. I would also like to ask, what are the tools you think can assist the business at this level, especially looking at the day-to-day activity, the operation part of the business to reduce the customer fulfillment time and probably to
Okay,
take note. Yes.
okay, I get your point. I don't have the fine details, right? Right. So it's a bit difficult for me to respond in context. But definitely technology is a lot advanced now these days. It's very advanced that you would usually find a solution somewhere that can do things faster, right? Number two is also trying to know how effective the people you have are, because technology is one thing, the people to use the technology is also another thing. So the question would be, how much of effectiveness do you have in your team? How much capacity? I hope you're not the only one who has this level of thinking in your team. You need to be able to bring on board some level of partnerships, right? It's better that two people are making 10,000 than one person making 5,000, right? Or two people making 100,000 and one person making 10,000, because at the end of the day, um, If you divide the two people making 100,000, one person will make 50,000. That's the way I think about it. So maybe partnerships, but in terms of the technology, it is a straightforward yes. There will be technology that you can adopt to make this faster, but because I don't have all the context, I might not be able to help or suggest. But you can just check online, ChatGPT, especially the ones that can think faster and deeper, might need to subscribe a bit more for that. But definitely there's a solution somewhere. Thank you very much,
All right.
Isaac. We can keep
Thank
conversations
you.
on somewhere.
Thank
So
you.
Treasure, you're asking a question on do shed some light on non-profit organizations that don't have structure or systems even after many years, right? Secondly, you say how can they put things in order to necessitate the growth required? You see, whether you do non-profit or for-profit, it doesn't matter. Eventually, it's all about productivity, right? It's all about productivity. It also doesn't matter whether you have a job or you have a business. You see, the same mindset for business is applicable for employment. So I like your question. The fact that you're not making money in a non-for-profit doesn't mean you cannot create structures and systems. One of the things that help you create your structure is you must understand your processes yourself. You must know the business, all your activities in and out, and you must be able to document it. A system creation, a process creation, a structure creation comes from proper documentation. If there, we talked about in the model key activities, right? What are the key activities in your organization? And list it out in a very simple way. And also list out the steps and the processes that help someone to carry out those activities properly. So the same way you buy a gadget and they put an operational manual in it, where anyone, whether you go to school or not, can follow the process of saying, put this together in this place, is the same way you have to create your own processes in your organization. And it starts with documentation. From the smallest task, key activity, to the most important task. You have to document it properly and have it explained to anybody working with you, right? And that's the structure we're talking about. Systems and structures, right? That's what helps you to grow. So you have to, and you can start immediately. If you think you need help, you might want to adopt or get the services of someone who is good to organizational management. Maybe you have someone in your network, but it's something I believe you can do for yourself, especially if you are the owner of the business, where you're first itemizing the activities and how we do things. It's just a simple question. For instance, you have a restaurant. How do we welcome people into this restaurant? Write it down. How do we greet them? As simple as that. You have your menu list. How do we make our food? How do we make sure that our menu and our taste is consistent, right? Jollof rice tastes the same today and for 20 years afterwards. It's all about documentation and communicating that in a way that anybody can take and follow. So my advice would be you start with documentation. I hope your NGO is also structured, right? Something as simple as making sure your revenue passes through a bank account can help you structure things in a certain way, because when partners are coming, they want to see some certain things. Are your communication channels proper? Are they done properly? Have you communicated your value in a certain way that anybody that sees you gets what you're doing? Talking about your social media platforms, your website might still be relevant in today, because when people search you, that's what helps your search engine optimization, right? So check that you've communicated properly in simple way, using your value proposition development to communicate on your social media, on your website, in a very simple way. Don't be too clogged by saying you do so many things. Like I said, eventually every business, every entrepreneur will be known for one main thing. So that's what you want to communicate with your value proposition and across your communication channels. So get your financial platforms, how you get money, how people pay you, how they sponsor you. Get that in an organization's name. That is part of structuring Your communication is part of structuring, and your process is also part of structuring. Um, so I hope that helps. But we can take up the conversation up later on, like I told other people. Adetola Barua, thank you very much. Would we have access to the recording, please? Yes, definitely. This is live on YouTube. You can go back to watch it, but you can also follow me on my social media platform. You can ask questions, and we can take the conversation up. Thank you, Ehis Korea. I see your message here. Thanks for the feedback. I hope that's all. We are now 1 hour, 7 minutes now. If that's all the questions, it will be a good time to call it a day, right? Or a night. So I said I was going to say something to you all as you build your businesses, and that is the power of telling your story in a very organized way. You see, there is a journey an entrepreneur goes through, right? It starts from the beginning to like mid stage to advanced stage. Don't lose track of the things going on with you. Document and archive things properly, because at some point it will make sense. Don't let your story be disjointed. Let your story be continuous. For instance, you sold white today and you're moving on to sell blue. Have a story that links the whites to the blue. And next tomorrow you're selling yellow. Have a story that leads the whites to the blue to the yellow. Just making an example, because at some point in that journey, you will need to mix that story together for bigger platforms, right? So as you're doing your business, try to document, tell the story, and that's why you have social media. When anything happens, the small wins, document it. You attend a seminar, create it properly, right? You get an award, you get a certificate, write a story about it, day in, day out. At some point, it will make sense, right, in the journey, because it's always a journey. Entrepreneurship is not like an overnight thing. It's a lifetime, especially for those of us that have the calling of entrepreneurship. It's something you're going to do for a long term, right? And when it comes to long-term factors, things that you do for a long term, that's journaling, that's documentation, that's storytelling, that's making sure it makes sense to people to follow you, such that when you want to move on to other things in life, people will follow you. It doesn't matter where you started from. You would have created a path, you would have created credibility that makes people know that, yes, this guy doesn't do this anymore, but because he's done things in a certain way that makes it easy for me to follow his journey, I can join him wherever he is. Thank you so much once again. I hope this was worth your time. I hope it was valuable for you. I'm not sure when next you're going to do this, but whenever it is, you're going to hear about it. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Have a nice weekend, and bye.